Hello, and welcome to the turbulent world with me, James M. Dorsey, as your host. The winds didn't just blow hot when Donald Trump recently touched down in Qatar on the first visit ever to the Gulf state by a sitting U.S. president, which generated deals worth $1.2 trillion. They also blew cold, chilled by a long standing Israel inspired campaign aimed to sully Qatar's reputation. The campaign portrays Qatar as a state governed by closeted Islamists who speak out of both sides of their mouth, propagate anti Semitic tropes, fund violent armed groups like Hamas and Islamists such as the Muslim Brotherhood, and bribe their way into the good books of successive U.S. administrations. The campaign seeks to stymie Qatar's successful all out effort in the past 8 years to repair its tarnished image and position itself as a U.S. ally in the wake of a Saudi United Arab Emirates led 2017 economic and diplomatic boycott. Saudi Arabia and the UAE accused Qatar of supporting terrorism and unsuccessfully tried to force it to accept their tutelage. They lifted the boycott in 2021. At the time, Mr. Trump initially backed the boycott. He derided Qatar as a funder of terrorism at a very high level. Those days are long gone. In Qatar this week, Mr. Trump described Qatari Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani as a great gentleman and a friend of mine. Going further, Mr. Trump asked the Qatari Emir to help me with the Iran situation, a reference to U.S. negotiations with Iran aimed at curbing the Islamic Republic's nuclear program and preventing it from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Even so, media headlines reflected the anti Qatar campaign's impact. A few examples tell the story. How Qatar bought America, how Qatar spent billions to gain influence in the US. More than just a plane. Gift to Trump highlights Qatar's multi billion US influence campaign. And how Qatar bought its way into America's power circles. The anti Qatar campaign takes on added significance with Mr. Trump's three nation Gulf tour, highlighting differences between the United States and Israel. The differences over policy, among other things, Iran, Yemen, Syria, and Turkey, coupled with the elevation of U.S. relations with the Gulf states, suggest that Israel may in the future be competing at an unprecedented level for Washington's favor. Tellingly, Mr. Trump did not include Israel in his Middle East visit. Israeli Prime Minister acknowledged the potential writing on the wall by noting that we will have to wean ourselves off of American security aid, just as we weaned ourselves off of American economic aid. That does not mean it will be smooth sailing for the Gulf states, particularly Qatar. Shooting itself in the foot, Qatar fueled the anti Qatar campaign by offering Mr. Trump an aging $400 million luxury Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet. The plane is one of several bigger aircraft that Qatar's ruling Al Thani family, owners of one of the world's largest private fleets, has wanted to offload for years. The plane earmarked for Mr. Trump has been on the market since 2020. Qatar would have done itself a favor by gifting the plane to the United States government rather than Mr. Trump personally. Qatari officials have since suggested the aircraft was offered to the United States, not Mr. Trump. To calm the storm the gift sparked in the United States, Qatar's Washington embassy spokesman Ali Al Ansari suggested that the deal had yet to be finalized, involved the possible transfer of an aircraft for temporary use as Air Force One rather than a gift. By taking advantage of Mr. Trump's lax approach to conflict of interest principles and neglect of U.S. constitutional and other legal principles that govern the acceptance of gifts by the president and U.S. officials across the board, Qatar gave credence to allegations that it does not shy away from bribery and buying influence. Nothing says America first like Air Force One, brought to you by Qatar. It's not just bribery, it's premium foreign influence with extra legroom, said Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. If Qatar wants a long term relationship with all branches of the United States government, you are about to commit a grievous error that is likely to be a permanent stain on your ethical record, and you should reconsider it, added Democratic Senator Tim Kaine. Qatar gifted the plane on the back of Mr. Trump's and associates' long standing business ties to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, which have produced multiple lucrative real estate and cryptocurrency deals since Mr. Trump took office in January. Critics charged that reporting on Qatar, particularly around the time of Mr. Trump's visit, amounted to a hatchet job designed to blacken the Gulf state's reputation, even though Qatar's efforts to shape its image and garner influence are no different from those of other Gulf states. Like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and multiple other countries spend tens of millions of dollars on lobbying in the United States and other countries. The Gulf states seek to garner favor in multiple ways, including hiring lobbying firms and donating millions of dollars to university programs and think tanks. Singling out a widely quoted story in the Free Press, Georgetown Gata professor Gert Lonneman quipped, "This Free Press, talk about a misnomer, piece is a transparent anti-Qatar hatchet job, drawing on the usual FDD and company's talking points, masquerading as investigative journalism." Mr. Noneman was referring to the Washington based Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, which often seems to act as a pro Israel lobby rather than a think tank. The Free Press said it had reviewed thousands of lobbying, real estate, and corporate filings. We interviewed dozens of American, European, and Middle Eastern diplomats and defense officials. We analyzed secret intelligence briefings and previously undisclosed government documents. Rather than questioning the Free Press's reporting, critics focused on the article's failure to emphasize that Saudi Arabia and the UAE invested as much, if not more than Qatar, in lobbying. The critics noted that Qatari lobbying is no more or less nefarious than that of other Gulf states. Like Qatar, these states benefit from Washington's revolving doors, which allow former government officials to use their experience and networks to influence policy and decision making. Multiple Trump administration officials, including Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and FBI Director Kash Patel, worked for lobbying firms hired by Qatar before entering government. The anti Qatar campaign seeks to roll back Qatari inroads in Washington, undermine the Gulf state's prominent role as a mediator in conflicts across the globe, particularly in Gaza, alongside the United States and Egypt, and distract attention from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's past soliciting of Qatari funds to keep Hamas in power, albeit on a short leash, and ensure relative stability in the Strip. Ignoring his past dealings with Qatar, Mr. Netanyahu has repeatedly accused Qatar of funding Hamas and favoring the group in its efforts to end the Gaza war. The Prime Minister also neglects that Qatar started hosting Hamas in Doha at the request of the United States, which wanted to maintain a back channel to the group. The time has come for Qatar to stop playing both sides with its double talk and decide if it's on the side of civilization or if it's on the side of Hamas barbarism, Mr. Netanyahu said earlier this month. Qatar has blamed both Israel and Hamas for the stalemate in the Gaza ceasefire talks. Speaking to Fox News this week, Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani lamented that we cannot reach a deal when we have a fundamental difference between the two parties. One party wants just to retrieve the hostages and continue the war, and the other party wants to end the war and doesn't think about the hostages. Similarly, Mr. Netanyahu ignored the fact that Qatar mediated secret talks in recent months between Israeli and Syrian security officials that potentially changed Israeli perceptions of Syria's new leaders and eased Mr. Trump's lifting of Syrian sanctions and meeting with President Ahmed al Shara while in Saudi Arabia. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said earlier this week that Israel wanted good relations with the new regime in Syria, weeks after asserting that the president and his associates were jihadists and remain jihadists, even if some of them have donned suits. The anti Qatar campaign, despite its inaccurate spins, has had some success. It has turned Qatar into a state like Iran that evokes strong emotions. Few have a neutral attitude. You either praise or condemn Qatar. For much of the 2000s, the campaign benefited from human rights groups and media focuses on workers and LGBTQ rights in Qatar during the 12-year build-up to the 2022 World Cup. Even so, the campaign has not been helped by Israel's recent Qatargate scandal, involving investigations of some of Mr. Netanyahu's close aides and a reserve lieutenant general for having helped the Gulf state counter the anti Qatar campaign. Israeli authorities arrested two Netanyahu aides in April for unlawful ties to a country that supports Hamas. Meanwhile, as Mr. Trump left Qatar for the UAE, the Middle East Media Research Institute, MEMRI, founded by Yigal Karamon, a former advisor to Israel's West Bank and Gaza Occupation Authority, and Prime Ministers Yitzhak Shamir and Yitzhak Rabin, dug up a 2-month-old series of derogatory and mocking commentaries in the Qatari press and on Al Jazeera Arabic, taking Mr. Trump to task for his support of Israel. Buried in the venom, the reports highlight contradictions in Mr. Trump's policies, including his calls for a U.S. takeover of the Panama Canal and Greenland and incorporation of Canada as the 51st U.S. state, while endorsing Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands conquered during the 1967 Middle East War. Although critical of Mr. Netanyahu's engagement with Qatar, Mr. Karmon and MEMRI have contributed to the anti Qatar campaign with a stream of selective translations of Qatari media analysis and quotes from Qataris and Qatari backed Muslim scholars, many of whom are linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. So has the Philadelphia based pro Israel Middle East Forum, which asserted in a report, America for Sale, that was that Qatar was waging an aggressive $40 billion campaign to control U.S. institutions, posing a dire threat to national security. Doha's unchecked influence extends into energy, artificial intelligence, real estate, and education, undermining America's core values. The report urged policymakers to classify Qatar as a foreign adversary, akin to Iran or North Korea. Halting this infiltration is crucial to preserving American interests and dismantling Qatar's soft power tactics, the report said. Thank you for joining me today. The Turbulent World with James M. Dorsey seeks to empower readers, listeners, and viewers to form informed opinions of their own. Equitable, fair, and honest analysis that lets the chips fall where they fall has seldom been more important in a world racked by brutal wars, unimaginable humanitarian crises, and increasing authoritarianism. If you share this vision, please consider becoming a paid subscriber by going to jamesmdorsey.substack.com. The turbulent world can only sustain and expand its independent coverage, free of advertisements and clickbait, with the support of its readers. Thank you for your support and loyalty. Take care and see you soon.